Hello, everyone. This is the Crow's Nest. As a team, everyone say hi.
Hello.
Hello. What's going on, YouTube?
We've got Carpath of RBET fame, the deck builder. Fitz, a top-ranked ladder player. We've got Dimitri, also an RBET topper. And you've got me, not known for anything. So,
You even missed some people.
oh, we got Maple too,
Who cares about them?
who did not RSVP for this video.
Maple of literally every
Oh.
format that exists.
We have
That's
Maple.
true. We do have Maple.
I'm here only to talk about the Lightsworn deck, and let's
Joy-
talk about it.
Joy Boy, the
Joy here to
recent
make sure.
recent RBET topper with Lightsworn, wants to talk about Lightsworn. Big surprise. All right. So we got this tier list, and I think the idea that we have is, what is the ceiling for each of these decks? If you pick up this deck and you dedicate yourself to it, how far can you go in this format? And this is obviously based on the current meta. Things can change in the future, but this is what we think. So I guess we can start with X-Sabers. Fitz, you start off since you actually play this deck.
All right, I do want to give a quick shout out to Mika of Rod's Nest for showing us the power
Rod's Nest.
of the
Did you just say Rod?
Rod's Nest. Yeah. I said what I said. We're
All right.
leaving that in.
Okay, we're leaving that in.
Mika of Ring of Destruction in our Rod vs. Crow's Nest Iron Man showed us the power of X-Sabers, and I since have picked up the deck and given it a fair shake myself, and I've been very impressed with the power of it. Gotham's E-Call is a nuts card. Underrated fact is you can bring back not only the little guys, but the synchro monsters you make too. It's just a straight up one of the best pluses in the game. Can do cool combos with False Roll and Ripping Hand stuff out. It's weak to Oppression and DDV, but overall I think it has enough gas to be considered B tier.
Alright, anyway, C tier.
I also played with it a bunch, and it seems one of the most underdeveloped decks of the format currently. I would put where it's at currently in B tier, but I think someone could find a build to push it even higher.
Yeah, I
Frog
think
Fest, you just joined in the middle of the video, bro.
we have been joined by Frog Slicer. And he's gone. Oh wait, he's back. Anyways, Fitz has been terrorizing me with X-Sabers quite a bit. But they do have another weakness that was not mentioned, and that is a 1300 defense monster. if you set like Fossil Dyna or Alias or Garoth, right?
Yes.
Or Alias, they can actually have trouble with that because they can't crash into it with Emmer's Blade, and they can't hit over it with Fulham Knight. So that's another funny one, but I do think they're very strong, and I agree with Dimitri that they're underdeveloped. Go ahead.
Counterpoint, if you're setting Garoth, I'm already winning.
You know what?
True, yes.
Well, unless you summon Celestia the next turn. How about that?
If I had Celestia or JD, I would have won the turn that I set Garoth.
Maple just grew bad those games. That was what.
So,
That's a Lightsworn moment.
I kind of want to go. Well, we can put it for B now, and
Let's
then
all
we can
vote.
see.
Let's just vote.
You can put it B.
We can see where it ends up at the end. Okay.
Okay.
Diva Frogs, I don't think it's very good. I would put it like there, but go ahead.
Diva Frog is the new Rognak creation.
Well, it's
Or
the
rather,
old
it's
new
already
one.
worked out for a while. It had its coming out party in RBCT.
Right. It's the old new deck.
Yeah, he shelved it
Like,
a while for.
I don't think it's
Frog,
C
and then
tier. I think it's
after Diva
Fairies.
Frog, he went back to it.
Yeah, I think it's really good.
Okay.
I think it's super hard to play, though. It's really complex.
Where did I put
so
it
I'd
on my
put it-
list? That's the real question. I put it in A. Wow, I was high on it.
I have it in
I
B.
think A.
Okay. So
I
everyone's higher
have it
than
in
I am.
B. I have it in B above Sabers, to be honest.
Surely it's
I think it
above
does
Sabers.
a lot of the unfair frog things, but it just in general feels like it's a little underwhelming. And in general with frogs, it's just very dependent on the meta and what sideboards look like. So I feel like it's decent, but one of the weaker frog decks overall.
All right. I can get behind that. Do we?
And a weak frog deck is better than X-Sabers.
Wow.
Got him.
Harsh words.
For now.
Got 'em. Okay. we'll put that for there. Ancient
D for
Gears
Cyber Dragon.
are terrible.
Yep. Yep. Moving on. Moving on.
All right, D spawned. D for Duplock. Okay.
This
There you
deck
go.
is good. I like this deck a lot.
This deck is higher than any of the ones we've listed so far, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
In
I
top of
would put
B?
it below Diva Frog.
Really?
I would not put it below Diva Frog.
Sorry, what was that?
It just loses too hard to some
We're
things.
still talking about ancient, ancient.
Oh yeah, are we talking about Ancient Gear or Quickdraw?
No, Quickdraw is fine.
That stratum of deck that has absolutely zero good answers to Spirit Reaper.
Just draw the
Yep.
brain one.
Yeah, the one of BrainCon.
What were you saying,
Or just
Dimitri?
play Ancient Gear Golem.
Dimitri thinks Diva Frog is better than Quickdraw.
Yeah, I think Quickdraw Volcanic is one of the more resilient Quickdraw decks, but there's still like it loses way too strong to Oppression, DDV kind of stuff.
See,
Like it just all of the unfair cards that it could be hit with by top decks, it just loses to.
yeah, in my play with it, I've actually found that like it's not as big of a problem because you do have the decrees, and I really like that. Also, like I think one problem with like the more traditional Jeff Jones style quick draw list is that you make Drill Warrior and then like you can't attack into back row or like summon anything while he's on the field, so you can't like really get aggressive, and having the decree really fixes that. And then like the shells, being able to get like clear a whole board basically with shells is pretty crazy. I think this deck is really good, and I think James liking it kind of he does pretty well with it. And Housecare on our team.
The best Quickdraw list. I put it like at the top of B or something on mine, I think.
Yeah, I have it high B as well. I think it does a lot of things good, but it's too many weaknesses to go much higher than B.
Yeah. What about Chainburn, Frog Slicer? Do you have opinions?
F for Frog Slicer.
I think Chainburn is pretty good in Edison, and it's really bad as the format gets faster.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
I think if we're seeing Dragon Turbo, it's like a horribly unplayable deck.
Yeah,
So right now,
Dragon is
Dragon's
pretty
really low.
against
I would be bad against Dragon. Like,
Prime Material.
oh, well, yeah.
Yeah, they main deck Prime Material. They stop
They
Battle
don't
Fader,
all main that, though, do they? Well, I don't know.
and they're
A lot,
faster. So they'll just like press you for damage. Like Chainburn really thrives if you're able to take 1 or 2 punches to the face and not die.
It makes sense. So
So if that's not the meta, then it's not good. But if that is the meta, I think it is good personally.
So
interesting.
it's very
I go
meta
F.
dependent.
Yeah, put it with Ancient Gears.
Okay. Anyone have any objections to this?
I'll
I would
settle
put it
for it.
F.
You put it
I would put it F.
F. Oh,
Yeah, just for current meta, F. I think previous meta it was better. I think in D tier, but now I think it's F.
we'll put it there for now. We'll see
Yeah,
if there's anything
officially
else.
put it top
Frog
in
Slicer's
listing
also getting hit with main decked trap stuns all
Oh
of a
yeah,
sudden.
yeah. I'm
So-
like
Yeah.
main decking trap stun decree with the quick draw deck.
Rude, you guys. I mean,
Even some people I think might even play decree and Lightsworn main, but we'll see. What about Diva Hero? What do we think?
S.
S tier?
S.
I have it in A.
I would have it
That's
top
cap.
of A.
That's cap. It's S.
I think it's borderline between S and A.
It's not. It's like high S. I think.
what keeps it in A?
I think it's like just too inconsistent because
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be my concern as well. It has times where it can't find the heroes or can't find the waters. It's pretty weak to pulling the rug.
even just like not
I mean,
finding
it's
your
weak. I'm
Dragon.
kind of nitpicking. Like obviously it's a very strong deck, but other than Carpath, your Neospatian like Diva Hero, I don't think it had topped in a few tournaments. Like
Still just top with it.
yeah, but that was like in Ribbit 1. I think that might have been
He
the
also
last one.
like always tops with everything.
That's true. I think
It's been
Hold on.
several tournaments, and I don't think that's an accident. That's not saying it's a bad deck. I just think there are better ones.
I do
and
think
you have
that-
to draw the line somewhere.
I do think that one thing that Silchus does, because I was talking about the consistency, I think one thing that he does is he doesn't play the Dark Package. He doesn't play Armageddon Knight, Plague, or Dad, and he just tries to, make sure that he's able to do his actual hero and water stuff and find his, discard traps and stuff like that. I think that's probably a smart way of doing it if you are looking for consistency out of it.
I'm
And
fine
not
with
not
Almanac.
diluting it.
I think you should not play Dad in Diva Hero. You brick on it way too much.
All right,
Like,
for
way too
now,
much.
we can put it right here.
Yeah.
What about
I mean,
fairies?
it's
Well, they're A, but they're not as good as Diva Hero.
The thing with fairies is they're so punishing to misplay.
Yeah.
So, for one, anything you rated on here will be an overrate of like what it will do on average, and for two, over the course of like a long tournament, you're going to get worse with them, and so it's just
Yeah, I completely
Yeah.
agree with both of those things. Like, even a great player, like the best fairy player, is going to make misplays because there's so many options that the deck presents you, and it's like really punishing when you don't pick the right one. So, I agree with that.
Except for Ben never misplays.
So I don't think fairy is bad at all, and I think it's good. I would argue though that it can be pretty meta dependent. It struggles a lot with decks that have constant removal for their floaters, such as frogs, and it also like just depends on how high impact there's stuff like DD Warrior Lady, and when the Christia drops, like how detrimental it is to the opponent. Like some decks are better at overcoming that, and then the other thing is there are two sideboard cards, Deck Devastation Virus and Light Imprisoning, that are just game winners against them that I think really just hurt their outlook post board. So for that reason, I was into the camp that it would be the very top of B is where I had them. I can see the argument for A, but just wanted to make those points against it.
I think if there weren't any side decking in Edison, fairies would be a lot higher.
I would put them in S for sure if there were no side decking. But I think just A is fine.
I think you
Yeah,
brought up a good
it's
point
not-
about frogs, because not only do they have the removal in the form of monarchs, but they also have walls, which they can have trouble with. Like, even gravekeepers are tough for fairies, just because.
Yeah, even like snowman eaters can
Yeah.
give fairies a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
So I just think like
This reminds me, we
There's-
should do one of these for side deck cards.
True.
So I can
oh,
put some
we,
mini in there.
we absolutely should. But yeah,
Oh, yeah.
in my opinion, like fairies just have like a few too many things they struggle with from what I've seen to put them in high A. Like I would petition high B or low A.
Interesting.
I can see. I would not put them in B. I think they're better than B.
I think they're just. I
I
think they're
can-
stronger than Quickdraw
We can
Volcanic,
put them
but
in low A if we want.
we'll see. What do you think about this deck? It tops a lot.
This is A.
Hero beat.
It's
I-
A, but it's really boring. Put it in B for boring.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
B for boring.
yeah. I think it's.
It's
I
sort
think
of
it's.
the opposite.
No, it's probably.
No, I think it is A. It just it's one of those decks that like doesn't have any atrocious matchups or like hard sideboard counters. It just does what it does. It's consistent, and if played well, can beat a lot of the top decks.
Yeah, I think
It's the opposite of fairies, where like if you don't know anything about the meta and don't like just want to click the same button over and over again, it's one of the better decks for that, and it's
Yeah.
probably about the same level as a like really well played fairy, I would say.
And that's not to say that you can't like play Hero Beat wrong. Like, you can definitely make mistakes and stuff,
yeah.
but I think it's one of the simpler decks, and
It has a far lower amount of decision points. You don't really need to like agonize over whether or not you're going to summon Alias or summon Stratos to get the Alias.
I mean, sometimes I think you do actually, but
Not to the point where you have to like figure out why like make my angels Nova Summoners count, so I have a problem.
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Fairies in grave. Do I have like a brain?
You're not doing the math. You're not doing that little like the gif of the woman and the math equations are coming up. What was I going to say about? I think it's actually interesting how Hero Beat is actually Fitz was talking about how when the Christia come down, how impactful is that against Hero Beat? It's like doesn't even do that much most of the time. It's like, okay, you drop Christie on me, like you just have a 2800 beater. I don't care, you know. So
Nice.
it's kind of anti-meta in a lot of like in the fact that it doesn't care about special summoning, and almost every other deck does. So
Yeah, I think it's resilience to a lot of the common side deck hate, and the fact that I don't think that the most common build of Hero Beat special summons at all is to its benefit. I think that Miracle Fusion is the only thing that's offline when Christia's on field.
Yeah, some play Cyber Dragons, but yeah, Miracle's the big one, obviously. I mean, yeah, I think it's boring but effective, like resolving Gem Sparks and Hero Blast for +1s and grinding your opponent down is an effective strategy. So
Yeah. So what do you think? Where do we put it in here?
It's below Diva. You guys
I
are
would
too
put it
low on
above
Diva.
Christia, above Fairies, just for the practical reasons.
Dragon Turbo S tier.
No. I
Ooh.
refuse.
Okay, go ahead, Carpath. Give us your
This deck is too high
anti-dragon.
variance for S tier. This is the difference between the ceiling and the floor is too big, in my opinion, for this to be S tier. I think it's only good when certain. I don't know. It's just like.
Well, then you get off into the weeds on what.
I'm not saying you brick often, but when you brick, it's like really, 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 really bad.
Yeah.
And like in a long tournament, if that happens, especially in a long tournament when you only need to lose like twice, if you just drop a game randomly because you draw bad once and automatically lose, that's really bad. So
I mean, a lot
it's
of the
like
decks
very,
can brick.
it's just very one-dimensional in my opinion. But
yeah, it's
I mean, that's
it's
combo
one.
by definition.
it's like really good at what it does, though. I will.
Dragon Brick a bit, but Dragon Bricks are probably the most obvious
Mm-hmm.
out of any deck on this list. If they're just setting a single monster.
It's like
you have to-
Lightsworn bricks and Dragon bricks are the worst ones.
Yeah.
What were
Yeah,
you
but
saying,
their
Frog
their
Slicer?
ceilings are also, but
Oh, yeah.
arguably the highest.
But I don't want to put anything that high variance in S. I think.
It's just saying like it's a linear strategy doesn't mean much because it's like that's what combo is.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's true.
I like it a lot. I can't really
Yeah, but I
gauge
think-
my personal
I think-
opinion on it because I think it's just slightly worse than my combo deck. It's just more straightforward.
No. I think
Nice.
the linear strategies are inherently weaker than other strategies.
So, Fitz, where'd you put it? S or A?
I had it at the very end of my S tier. I was going back and forth between S and A, and I think Carpath raised some good points that inconsistency is a big one, and I don't have enough play testing to really know how that's offset by the ceiling games. So I wouldn't fight anyone if they strongly felt S or strongly felt A. I'm right in between.
What do you think, Dimitri?
You treated muted.
He is muted, so he's sitting this one out.
I'm back. I'm back.
Okay, no worries.
I had to close the window. I'm torn on this one because how I would rank things in a tier list is solely based on like playing it optimally.
Right.
What percentage of matches will you win? And I really can't tell with Dragon Turbo. I just don't know the like percentages of how often it bricks well enough to be able to say that. But I do, yeah, very bottom of S or very top of A is where I put it, somewhere in that range.
ProStorm and Hydro have a bunch of data that basically just says like over half the time they will either combo or combo turn 2, and it's Edison format. So unless their setup like hard counters you're drawing through your entire deck, you know, we're looking at a pretty high chance of getting there within 2 turns. So I'm cool with
Yeah.
also low S or high A.
All right, we'll stick it
I
there
think it
for
was
now.
70-some% that they were saying.
Hey,
Yeah.
Wait, that was like
This
after
S-
2 turns, right? What
You
you
guys
put?
gotta give me B tier Dark Gaia then.
Okay, speaking of Dark Gaia, okay, let's start off there.
I'll
B
fight
tier.
you on that one.
I think Dark Gaia's super strong.
No, the modern builds of this are like optimized and way better, and they actually play like good cards that aren't Valkyrie and the Magna Warrior and Gaia Plate. So
I think
Like-
I played
And Masked Beast.
Masked Beast.
I played Joy Boy on a version of this deck that was
The
basically
Carpath,
just
a 6,700 attack Gaia.
No, it's like
Yeah.
that's not 8,000 though.
yeah. I played Joy Boy on a version of this. It was
have to
basically
play, like-
just Rock Stun with Dark Calling as like the finisher, and I think that was really strong because the Rock
You
Stun.
just play like real cards in this deck.
Yeah.
It's actually good, and not twin swords of slashing trice or whatever.
Problem
play, like,
I had with
Highest
it
big piece golem.
Big piece
is
golem.
that it doesn't really
Extend it with
plus at
Prisma.
all.
What's that, Dimitri?
It doesn't really plus at all, and it doesn't OTK as well as other decks. And so it just really didn't feel like it had anything going for it, especially the control version.
No, you
Because
don't,
it just couldn't
I
win
think
the
like
grind
the
game.
version is best.
I mean, I say it's low tier until Carpath tops with it.
Yeah, until you break it.
Ooh,
You got to
I'm-
break it, Carpath.
I'm not playing that. This deck's already been like.
Put it in
I
C
think the
because it's
version that
yellow.
I'm putting in B tier already exists.
Yeah, I will not accept higher than C until proven otherwise.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't think that it belongs in the same tier as like the Diva
Sabers and
Frog.
stuff, yeah. I can.
Yeah.
Putting it
Better
over
than
ancient
Sabers.
years, like legitimately.
I think this deck has a really high ceiling, but it's yet to be seen. We still need to have it like tested.
You guys just don't get it.
Sort of like
Ancient Gears has
What?
consistently been like top 24, hasn't it?
I don't know. It doesn't feel good to
What?
me.
It's just the one guy. who plays it.
Callum plays Ancient Gears and does pretty well with them most of the time, I think.
I'd say top 24 isn't that impressive though.
It's
Like
top
you're
25.
always going to run into like 2 matches that you just can't win before top cut with it because there's just too many like impossible situations for Ancient Gear.
Yeah, I think that's well said, Dimitri.
I'm just saying Dark Gaia hasn't done that at all.
That's true. That's true.
Because no one plays it.
What do you think about Diva Zombie? Like the
Top
traditional
of
one?
S tier. S rank 1. This is the best deck.
You think?
Yes.
I think if it's not, it's close to it. I mean, Diva Zombie in some capacity has been in the top cut of like all the recent ribbits. I think it's only been optimized since like I think Siltus's most recent list just
This
is really really powerful. I mean, it can just do stuff where it can just turn to kill you if you just leave a Goblin Zombie in play, like Goblin plus Diva plus Malicious in hand is an OTK, where they can bounce your stuff. It's flexible in the extra deck stuff it has options to. It's fast. It can plus with its synchro plays while setting it up for next turn. It just does a lot of things. And I think just Book of Light is a busted card too. Extenders are not too common in Edison, and one that also manipulates the grave are just all reasons why I think it deserves to be an S tier.
this is like the only deck in the format that feels unfair to me, just how strong it is. So
Like we got Brionac as like the independent
it's
individual
just
best
so
card
good at
probably,
everything.
Mhm.
Yeah.
and it just like squeezes max value out of Brio.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I think I agree with the fact that Siltrus's list is like actually insane. Using Future Fusion as like another copy of Foolish, but you also get to summon Ab-Zero if it stays on the field. It's like pretty crazy. So
Yeah.
I think it's really strong. Do we think its weakness to oppression holds it back or anything, or because
No.
that's like one thing that I
I
have.
think people
problem-
overrate oppression, honestly.
And they have
I think
combat
it's
launch
really
and bias.
Isn't oppression as much as it is that it needs setup. And it
Mhm.
needs less setup than other explosive decks, which is why it tends to be the best one of them. But if you just can deny it that like one turn of getting resources into the grave, it often can't play.
Yeah, it's definitely like the biggest like having like one Book of Moon or just like one key piece of interruption can be the difference between life and death against the deck, which is why it's powerful, but also can like cause massive swings where like a key DD Crow, a key Book of Moon or Wing Blast or something to stop their play in its tracks. Like that's why it's not like far and away the best deck, but I think it does enough where I mean it's certainly S tier, but
Nothing's ever going to be far and away the best
Yeah.
deck.
yeah,
in this format.
not in Edison.
I
But
think-
I think it does enough where, in my mind, it's definitely one of the strongest.
I think one card that we might see more of is Compulse, because I think it's really good against this deck since they basically have to go into their
Oh,
synchros.
let's save that for the side deck
Yeah.
cards, Mac. But I wholeheartedly
All right,
agreed.
this is A.
You got an A because it's like Dragon Turbo 2, right?
Yes, I put it between like Hero Beat and Diva.
Is Joy Boy here still?
He is.
I just
Joy
want to
Boy
replace this Dragon
is only
Turbo
kinda
because they're
here.
basically the same deck in my eyes.
They're
What's up?
not. They're not the
Where is
same.
Lightsworn?
Yeah,
have-
we're
we have-
come to Lightsworn. Let
Wait,
people
didn't
know.
Joy Boy put Lightsworn in A?
Let
on
me
his-
tell you, I have to say something about Lightsworn. Lightsworn is good.
Wow. Wow, so much.
You know, I know my team
You know
knows
what,
that
you've
I'm
moved me
always
to-
going back and forth from this is the best deck of the format and this is complete bullshit and no one should play it. I actually think it's pretty
This
good.
proves my point about Lightsworn, by the way.
It's true.
Where do you guys put it?
I think it's I think it's better than Diva Hero, honestly.
You were wrong.
Yeah, I have this theory about Lightsworn. Lightsworn is pretty much Dragon Turbo
Yeah, that's what Frog Slicer was saying.
on two different axes, though. I had this
Okay.
conversation with ProStorm, and it totally changed my mind, actually. It really gives a good perspective about the deck. So, like, Dragon Turbo has variants on drawing, the cards that you want, and Lightsworn has the same thing, but also on mills. It's mills and draws. This is where you gamble. This is the casino deck.
So it's just
So-
even more gambly.
Right.
Even more gambly. It can be more stable at certain points because you play more monsters that you can just normal summon, but
I
then
will
if they're not
say-
good enough,
I think the average bad Lightsworn hand is better than the average bad
Yeah.
Dragon Turbo hand.
for sure, yeah.
Even if like the horrible brick is just as bad.
Yeah, but
That's
I
my-
also
my
think
basic idea about about it.
the God Dragon Turbo hands are better when
God Dragon Turbo hands are better than like any hand.
For sure,
Yeah.
for sure. Cannot beat Future Fusion in Lightsworn, for sure. I mean, the opening
Yeah.
might beat Future Fusion opening from an opponent. You
Yeah,
never
I
know.
think for sure, I think Lightsworn loses the head-to-head Ab Zero, but
Yeah,
I guess that
I think
doesn't
actually the
definitively
worst
make it
matchup
better,
for
but-
for the deck, I think the worst matchup is Quickdraw Volcanic deck. Definitely decks that don't need to
Really?
apply a lot of pressure. They don't need to invest a lot from their hand, and they can still put a lot of like they have key plays like Kaiosing your Satrike or Hamster, and then drilling, which you cannot really stop drill with Lightsworn unless you have oppression. That's why I made it actually. There's not a lot you can do about drill, and that continuous advantage that they can have every turn is hard for you to actually do with.
Yeah, I actually played that matchup against Carpath for a few games, and I did feel like I was fighting for my life, but if you like I would actually, you're talking about oppression, I would like save my Battle Fader until like I knew it was going to be lethal, and like I could survive for quite a while actually.
Sure, even Battle Fader actually is a huge problem for Lightsworn. If you Battle Fader twice
Right.
at key moments, maybe the Lightsworn player decks out.
Right, Battle Fader's so insane.
The
I
main
feel
given
like
is
I would
JD
agree with the
Celestia.
placement
Yeah.
if we hadn't put Diva Hero in A tier.
I
see.
think you should put Lightsworn right next to Dragon Turbo.
Fish
and it
is,
will be lower.
by the way, F for fish. This deck is garbage.
I don't think it should be on a tier list anymore.
Yeah, wait.
I think it's above Chainburn.
Put it in the new tier with.
Do we think
with
it's?
the
I'm not even.
Setting the bar high.
I'm not even sold that it's above Chainburn, honestly.
Is it better than Chainburn? I don't know.
Like if you're playing
Maybe.
fish, why aren't you just playing a different frog deck?
Yeah.
I think it's similar power level to Ancient Gear, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. It's
think
like pretty linear, and it loses to a lot of things,
It loses to literally everything.
but it's still pretty strong.
The thing is, like, if you're playing fish and you had like a similar hand with like frogs, where you could just like stall for 3 turns and then like wait till you draw into like Cold Wave or something, like I feel like you could be doing so much more with that hand if in a different frog
For
deck.
sure.
Like, why are you even playing it?
So bad to like OTK with this deck.
Just, I don't think it's in D tier. I think it's an F
I
tier.
think it's somewhere in
I'm
F.
fine with
I
that.
don't know if
Yeah.
it's worse or better than Chainburn, but
We'll put it here for now.
Thank you.
Frog Hero.
that's an A tier.
Yeah, I
Top of it.
had it towards the end of A.
Below
Here?
Diva, maybe.
I
I
think
would,
it's
would rank it above Fairies personally.
Yeah,
I'd put
definitely
it
above
below
Fairies.
Diva Hero.
I would put it above Diva Hero.
Stop putting things above Diva Hero.
Carpet.
Diva Hero is overrated.
No, it's like a slightly worse version of the Diva Zombie deck.
Carpath just topped with Diva Hero,
Like-
so he's partial.
So in my opinion, the Diva Zombie deck
Diva
is basically Diva Hero
cards
on
were so
crack.
good they
and
were
this-
able to carry the Neospatians over the finish line.
Go ahead, Fox Slice here.
It's like if Diva Frogs is like the weaker version of Diva Hero, or sorry, of a Frog Hero. And the same thing goes, like Diva Hero is like the weaker version of Diva Zombies in my opinion.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I don't think there's any decks between Diva Hero and Diva Zombie on my version.
Okay.
You have them
so
as the top 2.
Yes,
I think
I have the Diva Zombie as the top one, and then this is just a little bit worse.
the funny thing is, I
I
think.
would
But it's
put it
basically
second
the
of me.
same thing.
Go ahead, Dimitri.
Yeah, I would put it above Dragon Turbo, I think.
This deck?
Hero Frog?
Frog?
Yeah.
here?
Yeah.
Okay, that
Surely
is
this is
spicy.
No
Yeah.
way.
I think it's funny because like Turbo and then these three decks are all like I feel
Frog
like they-
Hero loses for way too much.
all of these decks I feel like can brick really hard, and then like these decks are super consistent.
Frog Hero like suffers from the fairy problem. It just
And Fairies are good against
Like-
Frog Hero,
Oh, yeah.
or the other way around.
The
I think
weaknesses.
Frog Hero's like tough
yeah,
for
but like
Fairies.
they both get blown out by certain side deck cards. I
Yeah,
think.
Yeah. If Kaiku and Soul Release are around, like the Frog Hero deck just relies so much on its grave.
People
Like,
stopped playing it because people were just preeing for it.
Yeah,
And
straight
now the
up.
zombies have
Yeah, we-
respect
and
as like
We
all
went
of
through a
them.
meta that was everything was against like Frog Hero because that was the breakout deck of a ribbit. But I think we're getting past the curve of everyone completely preing it.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
people are starting to look at other decks like Dragon Turbo and caring more
Yeah, but
about
even
that
if they
than
aren't
zombies.
completely freeing it, there's still like
you should see
deck
what
cards
some of the
and-
side
oh,
decks
I don't
were
know about
for
that
Ribbon
one, but-
3. It is
Yeah.
absolutely hilarious how many people were completely
most people
hating
tried
on
something
Frog
for
Hero.
Frog.
Yeah, which also means it's good.
I
I
think,
think A
I
tier
think
good.
A is a fine spot.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think the biggest like one of the biggest weaknesses of Frog Hero is that you just have to play a control game, and it's just so much easier to play aggro. And like Fairy, even though they're a control deck, they can, and these two are both like have control aspects to their game. They can like just attack your face a bunch of turns, whereas Frog Hero is like they have to kind of wait for you to do something most of the time.
Because I know that like Keegan was saying something similar after the Tengu tournament, where he was talking that like aggro decks in Yu-Gi-Oh are
Yeah.
usually just with the way that battle is structured in Yu-Gi-Oh
Mhm.
that aggro decks are inherently better than control decks because control decks need to keep like a flow of resources up a whole bunch, and
think
aggro
they're,
decks
like-
can sort of
Easier to play for sure.
Where are we
Um,
putting
I
pure
have-
Blackwings?
I have this at the bottom of S tier. I think it's the worst Blackwing thing, but it's
Yeah.
still S tier.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. You think it's the worst of the Blackwing variants? Is pure
Yeah, I think Vayu and Hybrid are both better.
Yeah, I agree with that actually.
I have it like Hybrid's the best one and Vayu's the middle one.
Wait, but you also have Turbo. I think pure Blackwing is better than Turbo
I
probably.
like Blackwing better than
Or-
Turbo.
Yeah,
Same.
I agree.
Probably. I would put it there.
Yeah, Blackwing is just having no real bad matchups and no real sideboard card hates against it. You know, Consecrated Light's the only one I can really think of, or maybe like Starlight Road for the Icarus attacks, but
Or
I
Trap
mean, if
Stun
you-
maybe.
Yeah,
It's
but
better Hero Beat.
yeah, it just does more than Hero
Yeah.
Beat, kinda,
And in
and
this
it does
meta
it very well and gets to play Oppression and Deck Devastation Virus very effectively, which can just win at match. Like it's very solid.
Imagine if the Blackwings were just wind. Like then it would be a fair deck because then you couldn't play Dad, or like Allure. You know?
No
Water.
Dark Eruption was really what killed it though.
Yeah. No Dark
the
Eruption.
thing that is that
Can we
those- the side
rate the
cards
other
that-
Blackwing decks then alongside it?
Yeah, we may as well, right?
Does
What were you
anyone
saying?
disagree with my order?
What were you saying, Maple though?
The thing that Fitz mentioned about the side cards is that in this particular meta, Blackwings are a lot better positioned because people aren't really citing copies of Consecrated Light. They're not citing in copies of.
Is Consecrated even that good? Like,
I don't think
No.
so.
I'm not convinced. It's that
I don't
good.
even like it because you can just like set a Blackwing into an Icarus it away or something.
Or also Consecrated loses to DDV, and
Right.
everything that would want to play Consecrated also loses to DDV. So you don't want to
Yeah.
give Blackwings more time to draw into it and more targets for it.
Yeah.
Great point.
Yeah, Consecrated is more of a card that you play if you want to have, if you already have an actual play beyond summoning Consecrated Light, because your first turn's always going to be eaten up by normal Consecrated Light and probably set some protection for it, and then you need like other plays for it as well. The problem with like Lightsworn, for example, is that if you just have a bunch of wolves or other orbs, then you're just sitting on a Consecrated Light waiting for your opponent to find the out. And while that has been something that's happened in like a couple matches I play against Dimitri, it's not a great place for you to be because you want to actually advance your game state rather than just put a pause on everything for everyone to draw more cards.
Yeah. I put the other two Blackwings on here in this order. What do you think?
Disagree.
Why is Vayu above Diva Zombie?
Because I really like Vayu. I think it's
No.
Vayu strong
I-
So
deck.
I said this
No,
off
no.
camera.
Diva Zombie
Hybrid
over
is-
Vayu.
Hybrid is strictly better than Vayu.
What? So you have it like
Yeah.
this?
I
I
think there's
put
no
Vayu-
disadvantage to playing hybrid over either of the other builds. I think it's like the absolute
Yeah.
have your cake and eat it too build.
Yeah.
It has all the advantages of both.
And that's Dimitri's deck, right? That's what you talked with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were the first one
when
to
I was
top with
looking
it.
at, I was like, how do I abuse Vayu without playing bad cards like Raikou? Because Raikou seems bad in the meta. And the answer was just play Blackwings so you can search it, and then play Greffer so you can turbo it into the grave. My build at the time wasn't great, but it's still, that deck is so insane. And I think pure Vayu is massively overrated because of cards like Raikou that just aren't that good right now.
I still think
I
pure
would put it
Vayu is better than
tier.
better than like 2010 Blackwings that people still play for some reason.
I think I really, really like pure Blackwings just because it's like so consistent. It has so many answers to so many things. But what I like about the hybrid is it like gives it that top end, like you can really race them and stuff, and like really everybody's like
Yeah.
going so fast. And I think that the hybrid has that speed which it's funny because Blackwings already can clock you so fast with like pumping Bora and stuff, and just like, you know, doing so much damage with Kalut and everything. But I think the hybrid pushes it even further.
Yeah, I don't have a strong read on the hybrid, but it's just a relatively new deck where some like people weren't really trying to do it, and it seems like it has gotten optimized to the point where, you know, the ratios of like Greffers to Blackwing monsters and whatnot has gotten better. And I agree with the theory of it. Like what makes Vayu so strong is that, you know, it has a good grind game, like Greffer pitch to make a 2300 beater is solid, but like it has the power, like it has great ability to drop dad, burial in it. It's insane. And then it's just good throughout, you know. And I think hybrid does a lot of the same things, but also gets to play Whirlwind and Blizzard. So I'm good with that order.
Your deck fits. Where do we put your deck?
I think it's A tier.
I also think it's A tier. So for those who don't know, I have
Low fairies.
yeah, not to brag, but I am currently a top 10 ranked player on the FL fan or format library ranked, and over 100 of those matches of my like 160 or whatever it is have been with Flamvell Zombies. So I've had my fair share of experience with it, and it took some terms to come to admit that it's probably just a worse version of the Diva Zombie in terms of that. I basically use the Flamvells as my tuning engine instead of the Divas, which compromises speed but lets me play Rekindling and Fire Dog, which, you know, to be fair, are great cards. But
The divas are like 2 cards, and the fire thing is like 9 cards.
9 cards, yeah.
all right, well, there's obviously some changes as well, but the theory remains is that the zombie engine is still great, and you can do some crazy stuff with Rekindling, getting back multiple magicians, syncing with goblin zombies, etc., to just pump out some insane boards. And essentially it's slower but requires more setup and lets you play stuff like Fire Dog, which having access to 1900 beaters depending on the meta can be very useful. Like I think my like Flamvell Zombies is actually favored against the Diva Zombies because Fire Dog is such a strong card against that deck, eating the goblin zombies and the pyramid turtles and just creating Stardust with back row, and just kind of flipping the game in that regard. So long story short, I think it has its pros and cons, but I think it does a lot of the same things that Diva Zombie does, just a little bit slower, and deserves to be in A tier. I think it's very strong.
I think, because I've also played with the Sex some, and I think it's interesting how it has so much better matchups against other decks that like really are really, really bad for the traditional zombie deck. Like against Glads, like especially even D-Fissure Glads, like you can still summon a Fire Dog and like ruin their day. Whereas against like in a traditional zombie deck, like Glads are going to be presenting you like a lot of trouble. And then like, so the Fire Dog is great for anytime you just need a big beater, and it kills Kaiku, which is something that people sometimes side in against zombies. And then also you have Raikos, so people can't just attack into your sets thinking, oh, this is a goblin zombie or a pyramid turtle or something. Like they can't just leave your sets on the field because it could be a Raikou that gets flipped up next turn and like actually outs something of theirs. So there's definitely some strength to this deck.
Yeah, I mean, and I get to play Rekindling, which is
For sure.
is sold like, again, the extenders are not super common in Edison. I get to play a version of Soul Charge and Book of Lifes to where the whole extra deck is at my disposal, and sometimes even multiple extra deck monsters to deal with lots of situations. And the compromise is, I have to cut down on divas and cards like Caius and whatnot to give myself that option, which can be detrimental, but it has its pros for sure, as we've outlined. So
Yeah.
I think it's very strong, and depending on the matchups, can be right there with some of the top decks.
I've played games against you where it's like I feel like I'm in a one position, and then you'll just have like Rekindling, Book of Life, or like Brain Control. Like you just have so many of these insane spells that like I can never get to a position where I feel comfortable against this deck, which is pretty cool.
This
Anybody-
deck's
Trap Dragons.
D for Duplock.
I think it's
But
pretty
above Ancient
solid.
Gear.
Above Ancient Gear, yeah.
I think it's probably C tier, just because Corky Mirror Drago is actually
Well,
really good.
my question
Turbo instead.
for you is, did you open Future Fusion? Because that changes my opinion of the deck a lot.
Good question.
Yeah,
Does
like
Gold
in
Star
paper
count in
tournament-
your mind?
No, Gold Star for Future Fusion does not count. It's like 3 turns we're waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as you are playing in paper and you just stack the Future Fusion, you're good.
True.
Oh, yeah.
Then yeah,
Yeah.
it's S tier if you can do that. but-
S tier if you cheat.
Yeah, I just think Drago and Red Med are like have some of the best effects, but it's only like 6 cards in your whole deck.
You know what else plays Drago Red Med? It's a good
Yeah.
dragon.
The good dragon deck. Yeah.
The
Um,
other thing is with recruiters. I am so against recruiters, and the reason why decks like zombies can get away with it is you get one recruiter into the grave and then you go off completely. This
thing
deck
is that
doesn't.
actually
You
get
you
advantage
get
off
Mass
the same
Dragon into the grave, and then it's just like, okay, now I have to deal with 4 more turns before I can find my Future Fusion play or whatever.
Yeah, not to mention like the newest Dragon Turbo list has a lot of little pieces from Disaster Dragon, so you can sideboard into like a really really light Disaster Dragon package for the matchups where it matters.
Right.
Plus, it loses to Electric Virus.
Yeah, that's true.
So, do we
You know,
want to
that
put it
completely
here?
changes my opinion on Dragon entirely.
I want to put it there.
I think it's still good enough to be considered C. I mean,
think
it
that the other
it
thing
plays
that made you play
it plays
recruiters is that you want the decks that the other decks also that play recruiters, being the zombie variants and Christias, that they get other benefits from playing those recruiters, because the zombies can like sync off of Goblin Zombie, get advantage off of that. The fairies get to enable. They get like access to Warrior Lady to out weird threats. They can just use them to fill up the grave with fairies, so they can drop Christia, and the Disaster Dragon just like, I think the upside is like Drago.
Well, like you can't even go into
using
that. Yeah.
recruiters to stall, I find very bad.
You just play it in
Fairies
the
Yeah.
uses them very proactively.
All right.
I don't think
Yeah.
dragons are so.
We need a new tier for this deck. Hold on. Create the pre-tier. Please.
Wait,
Just
wait.
add above, or below. It's fine.
I do not believe that
Pre.
Gladiator Beasts are this.
GB's going pre. This
They're
deck.
not below everything, but they are pre.
This is like its own tier. It's just
There
outside
are
of
certain
it.
decks like Gladiator Beasts.
That's
that maybe are a
perfect
pain
because
in the
that's also
ass.
where Gravekeepers go.
Okay.
Oh,
Where,
God.
wait,
One
where are
thing
we
to think
actually
of-
putting glads? I wasn't listening because I was trying to fix my screen.
I think C.
No, they
probably.
actually go in pre. We need this tier.
I think they're probably like Ancient Gear tier.
I do not.
I would
I
put
would
them
put
top
them-
of
I would
C,
put them
bottom
in
of
C.
B.
I do
I would
not
put them
believe
in
that
C.
Gladiator Beasts are that bad. I put them at like bottom of B at the highest, like C at the lowest.
Yeah.
I would not put them in B. They're
It's-
way too trash.
Another thing with them, the way Edison works right now is very much like solo tournament based.
Mhm.
But in terms of like different formats of team events, Gladiator Beasts and other decks with like more biased matchup spreads are much better in those forms of events. So I think that if that starts to flourish more, Gladiator Beasts would see more play from that too.
Yeah,
I
I
haven't
don't
done the
think
math on
I don't think
this.
they're don't think they're bad, but
But I
very
think they
matchup
have
dependent.
probably one
And
of the worst conversion rates of any deck in the format.
That's true. That's true.
yeah,
Having played them, I feel like they're garbage.
You think it's worse than Lightsworn?
Well, I guess we will defer to Snack's expertise then.
Like I've played Glads a fair amount, and it just feels like there's so many times where like the fact that you have to do stuff in the battle phase means that you really only they're sort of like the traditional Frog Monarch deck where you only get to do one thing per turn, and that's you have to do that in the battle phase, and if you don't get the battle phase, you just like die. It's
I don't know.
and like if your bestiary or your Murmillo is gone at any point, you just lose. Like there's
The game becomes so much harder.
yeah, because they don't have to think about like, oh, I have to worry about them tagging into Murmillo if I do this play, like all this kind of stuff. So
I feel like
the
if
other
like
thing is
one
that
thing goes wrong, you instantly lose. with
Yeah.
Glad.
The other thing with with Gladiator Beasts is that for Hero Frogs, specifically back when that deck was the thing that everyone was playing, rather than Murmillo being the problem card, it was Rediari. But Rediari also dies to all of the same things that Murmillo does. So if you get rid of the Rediari, because Gladiator Beast pilots only ever play one, then you don't have to worry about your
Yes, and they
trading
always
your
draw
heroes
it too.
away.
This deck is broken too, by the way.
what's this deck?
Gladiator Beasts.
Oh.
They brick
Yeah, where are we putting gadgets?
Cyber Dragon. Or wait, yeah, the same tier as
Diver
Zench.
Dragon.
I
This
do
is the
not
Cyber
believe
Dragon
that
tier?
Gadgets is better than Glad Beasts. I do not believe that they're better than Glads.
They play Machinas. They're better than Glads, I think.
The Machina Fortress is kind of insane,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, Machina
both of these
Fortress is
decks
not-
lose to Sidra. All three of
I
them
don't
do.
like. Is this like 1-for-1 gadgets or Machina gadgets? Because like
Machina Gadgets.
yeah,
What do
Machina.
they're
gadgets
better
do
than
1-for-1
they're better
for?
than Glads if they're
What do
Machina
gadgets even
gadgets.
1-for-1
I think so, too.
Valley?
I think they're pretty strong actually, just because
All right,
like they're deceptively fast actually,
but like
and they can play lots of back row.
Glads to go into the pre-tier because that's where they belong.
I can't put them there.
Come on, they are.
Where are we? Are we all happy with this placement for gadgets? Actually, was it that
Yes.
simple?
I think it's
I would
fine.
put both Gadgets and Glad Beasts higher, like
Mhm.
top
I
of
would
B
not.
tier.
Top
I
of
think-
B.
That's
So, top of C
Oh,
Oh.
okay.
for
Uh,
Cat.
it's a little better, but
I could see C.
Like
I
this.
support.
Wait,
I support
wait.
E. I think
like
that.
this.
Yeah.
I think
That's what I would-
Gaia is better.
I think Gaia is better.
I
Like
I-
unironically, and
Yeah,
I think Glads are
No,
better.
it's Cat.
We can compromise. We can compromise to this, right?
agree with this. I support this compromise.
I'm willing to accept it.
I love
All
Dark
right.
Gaia.
Oh, sure.
We're souls.
This is like bottom B tier somewhere. I don't know where.
Yeah,
in
is
B
this
tier.
like the traditional with the Gravekeeper
It's like-
stuff, or is this
No, I'm-
specifically Souls Manix
I'm going-
meta plus
Yeah,
Maybe
Flamvell?
this is just like slow Flamvells in general. I
I'm
don't
going
know.
with Souls Manic. The best way to play pure
Souls
Flamebell.
Manic.
Definitely
Yeah, I still
below
think it's B.
X-Saber.
Below Saber.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
It was just funny because he did beat Mika.
Probably.
Because the funny thing
It
is
might
I
win
actually
the
have-
head-to-head against X-Saber though, because Dog is crazy against that
funnily
deck.
enough, I actually
Yeah.
have experience against this deck, like with Lightsworn specifically, because of a funny minor miscommunication. At least from the perspective of Lightsworn, I think Flamvell with the Gravekeeper stuff is a lot easier for Lightsworn because they just need a lot more setup. But like X-Sabers have more explosive turns, and they can also just summon guys that are hard for you to out because full Hell Knight blanks an attack always. Fall Troll, you need Celestia or JD to get rid of or make a synchro. And
X-Sabers
I
are
don't really
scary.
think that's something that the standard
Yeah.
Gravekeeper Flamvell is able to
Well,
really do.
Yeah, not to make this about X-Sabers again. I do think
Yes.
the current I think they have room for even more upside, but they're definitely powerful. But bottom line is, I think the Flamvell anti-meta stuff is, it's definitely not bad. I mean, Rekindling's obviously a good card. Fire Dog's a good card. Anti-meta
I
depends
think
on the matchup.
anti-meta-
I think
I think
bottom of B
anti-meta
makes sense.
is significantly
All right, I'm the
better.
expert on this deck, and I say it's B tier.
Okay.
Like
Where would you have it ahead of?
Literally anywhere in B. I don't care where.
Middle of B.
Middle
Uh,
of B.
I think
I do not think it's middle of B.
I'd put it anywhere in B.
is it better than all these?
Yes, definitively.
I'm inclined to say yes. It's better
Yeah.
than Glad B, certainly.
Because when I play against Amaryllis, it is kind of scary and frustrating and annoying.
This is like 100%. This is the best like pure plant deck of the format by far.
I think I would put it here.
I think that makes
I'm fine
sense.
with that.
Okay.
Amaryllis also, in my experience, has a very good dragons matchup, and that's become a lot
It's
more
so good against
important.
dragons.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I love it so much against that deck.
like you can be way behind and just wall them out with Amaryllis and burn them to death because they can't get through other than destroying by battle.
Yeah. Or a key Mark of the Rose to finish them off too.
Yeah.
It's crazy in that
The
match.
fact that Amaryllis is allowed to play 3 copies of Snatch Steal cannot go unstated.
Yeah.
Actually, it's 4
Yeah.
copies of Snatch.
Four.
Because
This
the Snatch Steal itself counts as a copy.
this deck is bad, and we're
This
putting
deck's
it.
bad. D2.
Why are you playing this deck when this deck exists?
It's 2022. Stop.
Stop playing this
Stop
deck.
Stop net decking Jeff
Play
Jones.
Volcanics.
Well,
Yeah.
Yes.
are we
agreed.
including the cat
No.
plant
No.
quick draw? Well, if you
No, that's
include
its
quick
own
draw
deck.
in it.
That's what the cat represents.
The
Oh,
quick
okay.
draw, we can worry about that later.
Okay, yeah.
Because I think if you include all 3 together, then it's a lot better than any set of 2 of them.
I disagree with that. Well, I'm not sure if I disagree with that, but I have thoughts about it that I'll get into with the cat. But I think this one, like the pure, like, the one that Jaina won the tournament with, I think Blab was playing a list similar to this in Beast Mode. They all had success with it, but I think they just played well.
I don't think Beast
No,
Mode's
it's
even playing
bad,
Quick
yeah.
Draw in his deck.
I don't think this deck is very good. Like, I think this deck is just better in so many ways.
Yeah,
Can we
there
put
were
it
like
above
3
Gaia?
Yeah, there were about 3 matches.
No,
that I saw Beast
no,
Mode
Gaia's
play.
better.
I didn't see
I mean, no memes. I genuinely think Dark Gaia is better.
I'm like totally serious about Gaia, guys.
I actually think it's a
So
good deck.
bad.
It's better.
It's terrible.
We can put it here because
No,
it has
it's not.
results. It's tested, and this one isn't. And I don't know.
No, Dragons is worse. Come on.
Gravekeepers. That's
Free.
pre tier. For real. Like,
Why are these in pre, but Glads aren't? Glads is
No.
arguably more pre than
No.
Gravekeepers.
no, they're not.
I think
Yes, they
Gravekeepers have
are.
to be below
Yes, they
Glad.
are. Yes, they are.
Glads literally exist for pre.
I-
Like,
Frog Slicer.
Literally,
Why?
the only reason they aren't pre is because people remember playing Glads in 2009, and they take them to tournaments. So
just
most
because
people playing
BB
Glads
players have
aren't
been
pre.
coping on Glads for 15
Yeah.
years does not mean that they aren't pre.
Yeah.
The people doing well with Glads are pre, 100%.
Gravekeepers players are doing the same thing where they're like, oh, I used to
Okay,
play Recruiter.
fine.
Now I get to play Gravekeepers with no
They're both
Recruiter, and
pre,
they're
though.
terrible.
They're both
Yeah.
pre. They're both
Same
pre.
thing with Sabers.
Yeah,
They belong together. They belong together. They're like the same
Yeah.
thing.
we can
put
put
them
them
in
here.
Put them in
They're-
pre.
They're
No.
they're just a hate pile that can sometimes win.
Yeah.
And Royal Tribute is just
If anything,
a gross
Gravekeepers is
card.
actually like better in absence of like pre-ness. Like, it's probably
I think they're
got more diverse matchups.
better than Glads. They just have no. I'm just never scared of Gravekeepers unless I'm like playing Fairies and I can't get
Well,
over
I don't
Spy or something.
Or they
Some of
open
us are
Royal
afraid of-
Tribute before you can play. That's it.
Yeah,
Those are their
that's-
win cons.
Yeah,
They
Royal
can
Tribute's
do it.
annoying.
GBs
Yeah, that
can't
card's
attack me like
toxic.
that. Except with Cold Wave, I guess maybe. But that's so
Gravekeepers do
situational.
have the sack element because they have
Yeah.
Necro Valley, they have Royal Tribute, and Necro Valley turns all of their normal summons into deck dev targets.
Yeah.
But it
Um,
also does basically nothing else because Necro Valley is like totally gimped.
It's so
Why
bad in
can't
this
we just
format.
Put them both in pre, you guys.
No
It's
pre.
fine.
We are doing a serious tier list car path, okay?
What's
Uh,
the point of
serious tier
having the
list.
tier if we're not going to use it?
Because I can't delete it. It keeps messing up my
Yes, you
screen when I try
can.
and delete it. It messes up
Just-
my screen.
Oh
Uh,
my god.
okay, so we're above or below Ancient Gear. I think it's this tier. What do we think?
Below Ancient Gear, I think.
Okay, Cat, the good
3,000 before.
the good way
this
to
is
play
top of S.
This deck is
Titanium.
B tier. It's somewhere in B.
Yes,
I will
we're
argue.
talking the Camellia Cat snack your deck, right?
Either this, maybe Garden Cat. I haven't played around the Garden Cat a bunch, but I
Yeah,
think
so
Garden Cat, no.
cat plus plant and debris packages essentially.
I think if you're gonna play Titanial, you can play.
I think Cat plus Lone Fire Avarice is B tier.
Yeah, that package, I would agree.
I really like this
I would
deck.
put it right behind Amaryllis.
Right behind him, ahead of
That's
like Flamvells.
I wouldn't fight you on that.
It definitely feels weaker than Sabers.
Yeah.
I think this is fine.
And you can play Quickdraw on this. Cameron actually played Quickdraw in this deck at the Edison Summit recently, and it seemed to be
Yeah,
pretty
I think
interesting.
without Quickdraw, I would move it down. I think Quickdraw is very important for it right now.
I'm not sure because I'll have
I
to
don't
play
like
around with it
Quickdraw.
because Quickdraw just limits your extra deck so much. And
I don't like throwing Quickdraw into random stuff.
one of the best things about this deck is that you get to play every single good synchro in the format. Kuraz. Where are we putting Kuraz?
This is bottom of A.
Bottom of A. Wow. Okay. Other people's thoughts.
I have never been sold on this deck.
Never been sold.
It's
Like,
my favorite of the
every time
Quickdraw
I've seen it, it seemed not good. Like, worse than
I'm gonna use
the
the
Camellia
argument
Cat.
here and say that I grinded the puzzle with this deck, therefore it must be at least A.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I saw Carpath like beat James with this deck, and I played him against this deck, and it was scary. So it seems pretty strong to me. But
I had it in top of B, but I could see bottom of A. I will say, yeah, like Carpath was a win away from topping a Ribbit with it. He grinded to like
the version
top,
I played in the
top
Ribbon
10.
was like very suboptimal.
Yeah, and so he's optimized it since, and he's grinded the top of or near the top of the format library ranked system with it. And just from what I've seen, like it's flexible and does enough, and the ability to, I mean, if you think the Vayu 2-turn clock is powerful, wait till this thing just chucks out Titanial and Gadgetron and says good luck. Like, I think it does enough, and it's at the very least top of B. And if Carpath wants to
I think it's
convince me it's bottom
A.
A, then
This is my.
You're willing to defer to that?
I think bottom of A.
here's the thing with the real scary thing is Gadgetron attack in response to the attack declaration MST Gear Town. like on your like the attacking player MST's Gear Town, because then you won't be able to respond because it's in the attack declaration of the first one.
I don't think I've ever done that. That's so like random.
good.
Like, you're a snack.
oh, so you can't bottomless in that
It's, I think
scenario.
Ancient
You
Gear
cannot.
is,
No.
You can't
Like,
react
you
with
should go up
anything. You can't even solemn the MST.
Right. It's just
Facing your own. It's like rarely comes up, but when it does, it's
Forget
really
your
great.
break, then.
you
Get on it.
MST'd a Gear Town against me, and I've been like seething over it for months. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
And the other thing is, you can't do anything between attacks of Gajilmatrons. So
Right.
once they attack with the first one, even like they can have
Yeah.
MST attack with the second one, you can't do anything the whole time.
Right, because
So,
they
yeah.
have prio to attack, so it's a really good play.
Yeah.
This
You
is
can do
F.
that. You can do that in this deck too, actually. But
This is bottom of F.
I have no idea what this deck is even supposed to
Wait,
represent.
is it Light
just
Zombies?
This is-
zombies
yeah,
with
this is-
playing Goku in?
this is like the skill drain,
either
light
bottom
zombies
of
with
that-
honest.
The skill
Either
drain
bottom of
zombie
F or
worlds,
three.
like paladin
One of
thing.
Bottom of F.
You could also
It
put
is
it in
superior
pre.
to like everything else.
Put it in
Yeah,
pre.
pre. That's what I said.
It got a lot worse after the rivalry of Warlords ruling
That's true.
change.
But here's
I
the
still
thing:
think-
what is it even pre against? Like it doesn't
Like,
have any good
Flamvell is the
matchups.
Zombie World Gold Lane? I don't know.
I cannot think of a greater
Against frogs.
waste of a good card in this format than
Against
trying to put skill drain in zombies.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, get
It's-
honest. I don't
Go
know.
play like Reaper format or something if you want to play this.
Okay. Let's go over the tier list. Is there anything that's like
Yes.
standing out?
There's
to
a
you?
lot of S
We
tier.
have an empty pre-list that needs at least 2 or 3 decks. in it.
I'm not putting anything in pre because I
Come
can't
on.
do it.
We all the viewers know what belongs in pre.
They all
They know in their heart that
Imagine-
Glads
imagine
and these are pre decks.
those 2 are pre-decks.
Okay. And potentially
I'm
even Dark
seeing-
Gaia. We'll see.
Dark Gaia is not pre.
It can be.
No.
It can be.
How is it pre?
It's super pre
It is
against
pretty
any deck that has
balanced out, isn't
tokens.
it?
Any deck
That's
that has
bullshit.
tokens, this deck just
Mhm.
murders it.
What?
Yes.
The one
Yeah,
guy
it
does
does.
piercing?
No, he can turn them to attack when he.
Yeah, it turns
Oh,
everything
wait.
into-
Yeah.
I haven't read Dark Gaia, you know.
Okay. The guy advocating for Dark Gaia like top of B or something.
Like,
It's like, oh, I haven't
it's
read the
mostly-
card.
Joy Boy and I have read Dark
Dark
Gaia.
Calling is the important card, you know?
Yeah,
So
I think this is good. Sign, seal,
we
deliver.
like turbo here.
There
No.
are a few changes I would make,
Yeah.
but otherwise I think
What?
it's pretty good, mostly.
Yeah, I think we all have a few changes we would make, but it seems to be pretty average of what we think.
I think it's a
Missing a
good
deck.
representation of our opinions.
It does look like we're missing a deck, but I don't think we
Yeah,
are.
we're missing no Jamas.
Yeah, it's so true.
Well,
Well,
Jamas would be top of S tier, by the way.
We just edited out the super secret stuff. Final countdown.
yeah, final countdown. That's the goo. Anything you want to say? If you want to win your Edison locals, I guess you should play Diva Zombie. And don't play Light Zombie.
Diva Zombie's too hard. Play
No, if
like
you want to win your locals, play Hero Beat.
play like
Or-
Blackwing Hybrid. It's like the easiest
Yeah.
S tier deck.
Yeah, this one's
Or
actually
do
pretty
what
easy.
everyone was doing like two
Well,
months ago and just play
I guess
Hero
traditional
Frog.
Blackwings are easier, but they're not as good.
This is probably one of the easier and best
You gotta
decks. This
balance,
one's
like,
actually pretty
the
hard to play.
brokenness.
If
Yeah,
you're gonna
Zombies
play
is
it,
really hard.
if you're gonna play this deck correctly, it's actually pretty hard. So, all right. Goodbye, YouTube. This has been Kuraz Nest. Adios.
See ya.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was terrible.